Okay, I think we can start, and in the meantime, more people will join us as we go. So, hello everyone, welcome to our Twitter space. Today is a special day because we're officially kicking off the Nibiru Hackathon, co-hosted by DaraHacks. In this AMA, we will cover what is the Nibiru Hackathon, how and why you should participate, the tracks, and the prize. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce the speakers. You have Unique, our co founder, and Brian, our guest from DaraHex and also co host for this AMA. Brian, would you like to introduce a bit about yourself and DaraHex?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Very excited to be here. This is a very exciting hackathon for our developer community. If you're not aware, it's called InnovateX, the Nibiru Hackathon. It's going to be one of the top Cosmos SDK hackathons of the year, I would imagine. The prize pool is very, very generous, of 150 up to $150,000 for the spread over like first, second, and third place. So it's a very exciting opportunity for developers that have good ideas that haven't had a chance to participate in one of our previous Cosmos hackathons. Now's your time to shine. So definitely super excited to be hosting it with Nibiru and having the chance to join this Twitter AMA. A little bit about myself. I'm on the DoorHacks business development and venture team. So I'm involved heavily in hackathon operations, the launch of new hackathons, and of course, the review of the top projects that are submitted to DoorHacks hackathons, as we have additional resources, financial, incubational, et cetera, that we can typically provide, the best projects in our platform for continuation funding, and just more, work ideas essentially. So yeah, happy to be here. DoorHacks is very excited to be able to form a close partnership with Nibiru chain for this hackathon, and we're excited to kick it off.
Thank you so much, Brian. We're equally excited to have you here and working in joint efforts with DaraHacks. So before I let you take over, I would just like to remind everybody that if at any point during the AMA you want to ask a question, please feel free to do so by raising your hand so you can join us on stage, or simply leave your question in the comments. So with that being said, Brian, are you ready to take over the floor?
Yeah, happy to. All right, so now that I'm hosting, I guess I'll ask some questions and put my fellow hosts from Nibiru on the spot a bit, if that's okay. But as I said, we're very excited to be hosting this hackathon with Nibiru. It's a very unique opportunity. But before we dive more into the hackathon, I think it would be great if Nibiru team is able to just share a little bit about some of the more basic questions for our developers in our community that may not be as familiar with your ecosystem. So I'd love to start just with what is Nibiru chain?
Yeah, so Tendermint IBC chain, like you've touched on, supporting permissionless CosmWasm and a core application set that includes a perps exchange, spot exchange, and Oracle network. And the first application to launch would be the perps exchange, coming with our at the same time as our mainnet. So the kind of main idea here with Nibiru is to remove a lot of the complexity from having too many tokens and kind of give a similar UX to what you have when you're operating on a centralized exchange, where you have, margin trading, spot, futures, everything like that, all in one interface. And it's not exclusive to DeFi, the chain, but we do make a lot of things such that it's easier to, you want to wire a lot of DeFi apps in with the core application set that the initial team makes. And another key thing there is that we're trying to align the incentives between like stakers or validators and traders from day one. So for example, this Oracle network, validators post prices for the Oracle, right? I can dig into that more in a moment, but the main idea is that they earn fees from, alongside the exchange when people trade. And so you get that on top of your normal staking rewards that you would normally get in gas fees and minted rewards, except it's in stable coins, right? So you don't have to sell off the token to cover your validator costs. you actually want to get more of the Nibi so you can stake more and earn more trading fees. So there's a little bit of healthy feedback loop there. So yeah, the idea is to compose these base primitives that the core team is making and eventually extend them with a useful feature set for things like yield farming and other ways of automated investing.
Got it. I think that makes a lot of sense. And just to clarify, you're the approach of Nibiru chain is, while you are permissionless cosmosm, you are going to be launching with a set of proof of concept in-house incubated Nibiru products as well, like your Perps exchange.
Exactly. It's the example I find that's the closest or that comes up a lot in calls is people say it's kind of like in Terra's case where they had like Mirror and two other, I can't remember the names, but yeah, the same idea there.
Got it. That's awesome. Kind of dovetailing off of that, I would love to ask a little bit more about just Nibiru's roadmap in general. You explained a little bit about your technology stack and what you're trying to do, but in terms of like your immediate roadmap, is there anything upcoming that you're especially excited for in terms of your chain's development?
Yeah, for sure. So when we came out of stealth, we started with incentivized testnet a few months ago, and that's broken up into 4 parts. We're currently on the third one right now, which people can still participate in. And this acted as like a way to involve community members to earn rewards, but also as a sort of public beta. So over the past month, we've done went through 2 kinds of audits, one for pen testing for infra, and the other covering all of our like production smart contracts and the perps. And so the major thing upcoming is that 4th phase of the incentivized testnet, which is a trading competition before the final push to mainnet. And yeah, so that'll start sometime throughout the time span of the hackathon, actually. And then next after that is just the mainnet launch. I don't know if we'll do one or more than one competition, but that's the most immediate thing. Then from there, it's just, releasing a sequence of upgrades to things like our pricing algorithm on the perps. Is pretty big one to run liquidations entirely in protocol, so they don't require external transactions. And then, of course, hopefully rolling out yield vaults. So yeah.
Nice. Speaking of mainnet launch, is there any estimate to when that is?
I mean, in terms of code readiness, it's looking like this summer, but I don't have an exact date for you. Yeah.
No, that's good enough. Just people are going to get excited, so I'm glad they have they can look forward to something this summer at least, which is awesome. So yeah, obviously you're hosting this hackathon with Dora Hacks, but I'm sure our community and then your community in general would also love to hear if you have any other community or developer initiatives planned outside of this first hackathon with Dora Hacks, and what they can do to learn more and get involved.
Yeah, so we have the hackathon. We also have a grants program with the applications open now. That's accessible from like our blog or probably not too hard to find from our website. And then, anything else people are interested in, I guess they can directly email growth@nibiru.org or just hit us up in the Discord. Yeah, we're pretty easy to reach.
Cool. Before I shift over to the hackathon part of the AMA and start sharing some details about that, I'd love just to give you an opportunity to share anything else about Nibiru chain. If there's any question I haven't asked or anything that you definitely want to mention to your community and ours, love just to give you the floor if there's anything we haven't touched on yet.
Yeah, I think that mostly covers it in terms of the high level. I'll see if
Okay.
people have questions. Yeah, after.
Okay, excellent. Okay, cool. So we'll pivot a little bit more towards the purpose for this Twitter space, obviously, which is announcing the Nibiru Hackathon Kickoff, which is today. The submission portal has opened on dorahacks.io. If you're interested in participating, you can find all of the relevant information there. We're also going to be having the official opening ceremony for this hackathon early next week on Monday. And during that session is where we'll go into even further detail about the hackathon, further logistics about the hackathon, as well as share the method of which to submit, make sure everyone's familiar with using the platform. So that's very exciting. So make sure that's on your radar as well. But in terms of just getting a high level overview of the hackathon for all of the interested developers and participants who've joined us on the Twitter space here today, I'd love to just ask you in general, what's your vision for the hackathon, and what's like the main thing you're looking to get out of it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's our first ever hackathon, and we have a super strong technical team, but of course, there's only so much you can focus on, right? Can't do it all. So one common question or particular challenge faced by a lot of independent developers, especially in the bear market, is like where companies are restricting spending on things like grants and hackathons is how to find funding. So I guess we're just excited to engage builders in the broader Web3 community and see what comes of it. So that can be what we get out of it can be anything, any appropriate, you know, application of ingenuity, right? So that can be something quick and dirty. It can also be something people spend a bunch of time and meticulous effort on. Um, but yeah, we, I guess we don't have to, we're not looking for something in particular, just kind of want to let people be creative and see what they want to build.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach. Would you say that there's like a specific theme of the hackathon that developers should know about?
I guess like early on, a lot of the natural stuff to build is DeFi related, but of course it's not restricted to that. So like on our tracks page, they're really more like suggested tracks, right? So it's a lot of things that are, extensions to the current ones. It can be like IBC routers for integrations with other chains like Osmosis, um, extensions to like the front end, but I mean it can be like NFT related LSDs, things like that. So I would imagine people would mostly do a lot of DeFi stuff, but really anything is encouraged.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of tracks, I think that would be a good time, if to just share them in general. Is that something that you want to be able to tell the audience here? Like, what are the tracks and what are some of the ideas?
Yeah. So the first one we had was expansion of existing products. So this is we'll connect to a couple bridges. So we put like working on enhancements to that bridge UI or the actual connectors to different wallets, creation of things that operate like in ERC 4626 vault. So that's like when you um, basically it almost feels like a liquidity pool where you get like shares of it. If you're familiar with like Sommelier or Yearn, that it's kind of like that. So people could make things like that with that are delta neutral perp positions or use other protocols, or just provide like a tool for atomic swaps. So we gave some examples there. The second one was like data analytics and user dashboards. So that can just be like visualizations or anything that's more like front end heavy, right? Then community and UX, this can be things for like helping with like Telegram and Discord bots, monitoring wallets of like whales or other positions, and just like maybe pushing updates into a chat. Like if you had one for if a large position was going to get liquidated and move the price a certain way, something like that would be like not too crazy to build. And then the fourth category is just new products and dApps entirely. And that would be where, people make new marketplaces. That could be like options, lending and borrowing, LSDs, things like that. And then, of course, like the flex category, which is just build whatever you want if we didn't cover it in the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just expanding upon that a little bit more as well, I'd love to hear about the prize pool distribution. As I'm sure developers would be interested to know, what type of rewards they can be looking forward to if they submit some of the most compelling projects.
Yeah. So we have it broken into uh, three tiers, where one is like the bottom one is ranged from 1 to 5K, the second one 5 to 10, and then the top 10 to 50. And then how that kind of works is there's a minimum of 12 winners where you have like a guaranteed first, second, and then 10 thirds. And the reason we kind of left it open on the upper end is like, if people really impress us, we wanted to still have like rewards allocated to include them and have them at a higher price too. So yeah, so there can be like multiple firsts if people are that good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then in terms of just the key dates in general, right? This hackathon has kicked off today. It will be ongoing for, just over maybe close to 2 months actually. So I'd love to hear like what are the key dates of this hackathon that developers and community members should keep in mind.
Yeah, so we're planning to do like weekly or bi-weekly office hours depending on people's interest. So the kind of key dates are just like you mentioned, it runs about 2 months, and then at the midpoint of August roughly, that's when judging would start. And so that, I mean, we didn't select the people exactly yet, but that's probably a mixture of like some of our core engineers, like VCs, and then builders from other projects for the judging panel. And then we also want to do the community voting round after. So to kind of summarize in order, it's we have workshops and office hours running over the course of the main 2 months. Then there's judging at the midpoint of August, where people will submit demos. Then that by the end of August is like the first thing for the hackathon, and then I'll have to figure out how we do the quadratic funding part for the community. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you mentioned that because that's something very exciting that the community should be excited for as well. I think it's great to always include that at the end of a hackathon. Not every hackathon has it, but the ones that do have it are definitely very impactful because it provides a way for the top projects to receive like additional continuation funding, as well as involve the community itself and make their voice heard in terms of what projects they want to see built on the community that they're a part of. So just to briefly recap a community funding round, if anyone listening in is unfamiliar, given that Nibiru chain is a permissionless cosmosm blockchain, DoraHacks can actually build out a quadratic funding smart contract towards the end of the hackathon. And basically all of the winners of the hackathon, as well as probably if there's a lot of really good submissions and there's a lot of quality submissions, and not every submission is able to win a prize for the hackathon, there'll still be a chance to receive community funding at the end, where you'll be invited to join a quadratic funding round. Quadratic funding round is where the Nibiru community, the Nibi token holder community, will be able to vote on which projects they want to see receive continuation funding from this quadratic matching pool. And then the funds from the matching pool will be quadratically matched to all of the top projects, or all the winning projects, I should say, from that voting round, which is a fair way of distributing matching pool funds. It's kind of mathy and algorithmic, but essentially it gives even smaller token holders and smaller votes a larger, more amplified voice due to the way the matching is assigned. So this is very, very unique. And I think that Nibiru will be one of the very first Cosmos chains to implement this. So definitely something to be extra excited about for this hackathon, and something that I'm sure you'll hear more about as time goes on. I know you mentioned a little bit about the judging panel as well. That's still a little bit in flux, which is okay. As judges are added to the panel, we'll be sure to announce them. I do, and you also mentioned a little bit about office hours, which I think are great. I did want to ask one question from the community, which is in terms of like some virtual workshops. I know for now, like they're on demand, but I think if you could share your intention of like hosting some technical workshops, maybe to introduce your tech stack to the community of developers, as well as educational other resourceful workshops, if you have any of those planned, or if they're not planned yet, but you are going to plan them in the future, like how's the best way for the community to be aware of these announcements?
Yeah, I think some natural ones are, it would be good to do one that's for like setting up and using IBC at a technical level. I think it would be good to have a workshop on just general Cosmosm development, and then also one that is more maybe as a next step that showcases how you can use an external set of contracts to interface with like Nibiru specific bindings. So for example, there are some for you can like maintain and open a control a position through a contract, right? And so what that lets you do is basically have a group of people have a large trading position together as one collective body. So just walking through the developer flow for that, I think could be really instructive. And I guess also we could do one on just like uh, Cosmos SDK development as well directly. But those are probably like those would be like the first few, and then we'll have to see what people are most interested in. It also depends what the project submissions are on. If a lot of people are mostly focused on like front end stuff, then we'll just mostly focus on that for the workshops too.
Great. And then what's the best way for like people to stay aware of these announcements and just updates to the hackathon in general? Obviously, all of the detail will end up on the Dora Hacks platform and you can find it all there. But as things are getting scheduled, are there any other channels that developers can access and be a part of to stay on top of the most recent announcements?
Yep. So I see in one of the replies to this chat, there are links to one of them is to the Telegram chat specifically for the hackathon. So then that'll be like the first like news fresh off the press.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think I have a couple more questions for you, Unique, but if you have any questions for me, or if anyone from the audience has any questions for me, I'd love to give you a quick opportunity to as well. There's no pressure, of course, but if you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask away.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear more about the. I heard recently in like I think it was a short, Dorhex talking about the public good staking. So, if
Oh, sure.
I'd like to learn more about it.
Yeah, happy to share about public good staking, and definitely an initiative we'll be looking to bring to Nibiru chain as well. It's something that will help reward their committed developers. So, public good staking is a way to provide everlasting funding for developers. Obviously, depending on like external macro conditions, things outside of our control as hackers, sometimes funding can dry up for new ideas, or just community initiatives and hackathons aren't happening as frequently, or grants aren't as readily available. And we personally think that developer incentives are the lifeblood of any ecosystem. And that's not to say that all developers are mercenary and the only way to keep them and the only moat is by spending money to retain them. That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is developer incentives is more holistic than just financial aid, right? It basically means having a very committed developer community. It means providing them with resources and support in all facets. It means having a robust ecosystem where whoever's leading the ecosystem, whether it be a foundation or a DAO, et cetera, is able to work very closely with their developers, share ideas and intentions very carefully, and really solve problems. Hacking is all about having to solve a problem once, and once it's been solved, you should be excited about that, and you should continue to innovate upon it and solve additional problems as it pertains to whatever ecosystem you're a developer on. So I think just having developer incentives permanently is quite important to make sure that like hacking can be ongoing and forever lasting. So basically, the reason I preface this is as a permissionless hackathon platform, an infrastructure provider, and grant facilitator at Dora Hacks, right? Like our goal is to provide developers with as many incentives as possible to at least get started at joining the ecosystem and get started building, and provide them with some funding to basically begin growing their ideas. But the funding obviously has to come from somewhere, which is why I mentioned like having poor macro conditions can sometimes dry up the amount of funding available for new ideas. So basically what Dora Hacks has done specifically within proof of stake networks is spin up not-for-profit validator nodes where we actually dedicate the yield generated from these validators to supporting the developer community. So obviously, not only does joining a network as a validator help to decentralize it, but if instead of taking a commission to ourselves or running auto compounding scripts to maintain, high, like the greatest voting power, etc., if we instead just run a validator and distribute the rewards directly to the developers of that ecosystem in the form of grants, in the form of hackathon prize pools, in the form of quadratic funding pools, bounty rewards, public goods funding, etc. We can really help support ecosystems from the ground up, and provide an everlasting source of funding. Because as long as the network is alive and our validator is live, we're going to be earning rewards in perpetuity. So it's an everlasting stream of incentives for developers and a way for them to basically be able to take the risk in hacking and developing new ideas. So that's kind of what public goods staking is all about. PGS is what we call it. This is a program we're growing throughout Cosmos right now. We're live on about 25 different chains. And we think it's been quite successful thus far, and we're excited to be working with Nibiru on this initiative as well, and excited to be bringing it to the developer community here. Basically, that way we can provide everlasting funding, even beyond the hackathon itself, for the top developers in the Nibiru ecosystem. So yeah, thanks Unique for asking that question. Definitely something we're super excited about at Dora Hacks, and think will make a huge impact at Nibiru Chain to your developer ecosystem as well.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I think that I'd like to ask a few more questions about the hackathon itself, which is kind of related to like, what is the inspiration for InnovateX, and like the design of it. I'm just interested. Like, you've provided a very gorgeous like purple banner. Is there any story behind the name, behind the design, and kind of like overall like the vibe of the hackathon? Sometimes that's kind of an important thing to be aware of.
Yeah. So the name, we just thought it sounded cool. There's no reason, but the the banner, we have this initiative called Skybound. That's like a broader thing in the community, and so we're actually getting some art commissioned for that, and that's basically like part of it is like the like institutional liquidity program, but also includes like we already started like an ambassador program and other things like that. So eventually we'll also have like referrals and affiliates, and that's all part of this Skybound piece, which essentially we're kind of like defining the lore for the ecosystem of like how each component connects in a symbolic sense. So that's where the banner is coming from.
That's awesome. I love that. I also know that, like, as you mentioned, the judging panel will be announced shortly. But in terms of the judging criteria, is there anything that hackers should be aware of? You shared the track list, the prize pool, but in terms of just criteria itself, maybe there's some information you could provide there on like what are some of the key things they should be focused on when designing their projects.
Yeah, so we didn't want it to be a factor of like it doesn't so much matter who you are or your experience, but rather just like the output you're producing. So basically we're just looking at kind of the standard things like is the code written well? Does it work right? And then what's the impact like to the ecosystem? Or is it like pretty creative, right? Like if something doesn't necessarily need to be original, even if someone were to say like, implement a simple lending and borrowing, but it's like done well, I would imagine that would score pretty high. But yeah, factoring in difficulty, quality, how useful it is, and then like originality.
Awesome. And then finally, are there any entry requirements that developers should be aware of?
I believe we're allowed to have anyone participate. We just have to verify identity at the end. So Yeah, because like if it's, for example, like US developers, I believe we have to give stablecoin instead of Nibi. But um, yeah, right now there are no major requirements. You just register through the normal, Dora Hacks like registration flow. So
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that clarity. Yeah, so that's about like the majority of my questions about the hackathon. I think you shared a lot about Nibiru chain as well. Um, I'd like to remind everyone that this hackathon officially kicked off today. So please, if you're already familiar with Dora Hacks and you know the deal, nothing should stop you from getting started on your project. If you want to wait for a little additional information, as I mentioned, we'll be having the opening ceremony on Monday, which will go even further in depth on the platform. This hackathon is going to last for 60 days. It's going to go all the way through August 16th. So we've got plenty of time to, think of an idea and submit a project. I should also mention in terms of finding teams, in our experience at Dora Hacks, a lot of online hackathons, hackers already have teams. But if you don't have a team, please feel free to connect with the Dora Hacks team and the Nibiru team. You can find teams in our Discord. I'm sure also in the Nibiru Hackathon Telegram that Unique mentioned will be a great place to form teams as well. And that would be something that I wanted to point out. But with that being said, I think that, unless there's any questions from the audience, do you have any other questions for me, Unique?
not at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, so if anyone in the audience has any questions, definitely feel free to ask now. Or if you just rather ping me directly, you can at Brian Dora. That works too. But maybe we'll just give the audience a couple seconds here in case there's anyone that wants to raise their hand and ask a question.
Yeah, so everyone, just a kind reminder that I saw some newcomers here. So if you missed the first half of this AMA, you can still find the full information on the hackathon in the links posted under the comment section. So feel free to go check out our official page on Dara Hacks. And then if you need to find a team, you want to stay in touch for the events and upcoming news, please join our Telegram chat, which link is also in the comment section. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to just request to speak, raise your hand, and we can put you on stage. So I guess that's a no. Okay, everybody. So, and thank you, Brian, for hosting this amazing session. It's really informative. I think we have a lot of stuff covered, and lots of information. We'll be putting out the announcement of opening ceremony later today. So that will be happening next Monday at 12:30 EDT time. So that's the East Coast New York time. It will be live on YouTube. So feel free to go there. And in fact, we really strongly encourage you to, if you are interested in participating in our hackathon. It will be more detailed than today's session, and Brian will walk you through how to apply, how to build. So yeah, really excited about that. So without being said, Brian, do you have anything more to add?
No, I think that's about it. I'd like to thank both you and Unique for being up here on stage with me, as well as the audience who joined us on this Twitter Space AMA. I'd like to once again reiterate how absolutely thrilled we are to be hosting this hackathon with Nibiru. We definitely think it's one of the best opportunities for developers of the year that haven't participated in a Cosmos hackathon yet, or if you have, but think that your project could potentially discover new additional verticals or have extra integrations that really are synergistic with Nibiru's ecosystem. Love to have you apply to this one as well. But just would like to express my gratitude for being invited to this Twitter space and having the opportunity to host InnovateX. Thank you all so much.
Likewise, really appreciate you being here, and we enjoy the conversation with you. I think I can speak that on behalf of everyone. So thank you, Brian.
Of course.
Okay, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Yeah, thanks for the heart emoji. So don't forget the opening ceremony on Monday. We will hopefully see you there. So bye, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.